So, just a bit of history. So I come from the Netherlands. I've been in banking in the financial world for close to 15 years. Last years I've been running an accelerator group in the world, last 7 years till 2013. And it was ABN AMRO Bank. It was one of the largest banks in the world. And I was leading the group that was innovating the financial sector. So I'm proud to say, for example, we created the first wearable in the world that is now called the Apple Watch. But I did the first edition of that. We did all kind of innovations throughout the world, products, other kind of markets. It was the first crowdfunding platform. So I've been in banking for many years. Some time ago I quit to launch my own group, which is now called the XL family. There's around 100 employees all over the world. And so we help companies to innovate and to do things differently. Just to give you a small flavor, something we recently did in January. We want to show it just like for the things that we do.
It was supposed to be a normal, regular Friday night. A few close friends, some TV, maybe karaoke if things got crazy. We just thought we were ordering a couple of cases of Bud Light. And then...
So these are... So we more or less work for a lot of companies in the world, and we create, like with Bud, we create new apps for them to logistical innovation to deliver drinks to your office. So we can try the app, not here unfortunately, otherwise I could have ordered some beers right now to finish off our breakfast. Anyway, so we also have our own accelerator, and we have all kinds of companies, whether it's on startup management or on the future of talent. So we do a lot of extra things, working together with a lot of companies throughout the world. This is one of the things that we'll be launching in Mexico pretty soon, called Safe Drive, helping people to get less killings on the roads by not using social media, by being promoted for that. But today I will talk a bit more on Chief Human Officer and other stuff that we've been doing. But as such, we've been grasping and getting all kinds of awards over the last year. And we're very happy to also to be here, to have MFM as one of our clients. Anyway, so for today, because the title was Humor as a Business Medicine. But before that, so we see change everywhere. So you likely as well. And there are several curves to describe change as such. S-curve is one of them, describing technology advancements throughout the years. So you can imagine, like years ago, we were very happy with the USB drives. And nowadays, at a certain point, some people came up with clouds, for example, to store your data in the clouds, whether it's on Dropbox, Google Drive, or any kind of other tooling. And so now USB drives, they're still there, but they're more or less obsolete in a lot of markets. So you see in technology focus, you see a lot of change happening. The same you see with organizations. When you want to change an organization, you see people changing from new to having to cope with change, and then in the end becoming more productive. But people have to go to kind of like a change curve. But again, if you see that on the bigger scheme of things, the world is changing a lot. So whether it's in politics, so now at least in Europe we have a lot of issues with Greece. So how to prolong there, whether the euro will have some issues in the near future. But also in like the needs of people. Or the needs, again 20 years ago this would be life. And we've seen a lot of advancements over the last couple of years. A lot of advancements, and of course cats is a very important part of the internet, cats and dogs. So you see a lot of things happening over there. And it has consequences as well for organizations. So it used to be the case that the lifetime of a company at S&P index in the US was 65 years. In 20 years ago, it was already only 20 years, and nowadays it's about 10 years, what they say. Just to give you a context to this example, take for example the telecoms business. So 3 years ago, this was the big list of the worldwide biggest telecom companies throughout the world. And so what you see, they had a lot of money to invest and to invest in new kind of products and innovations. But for some reason, they are not that regular anymore. Because they saw new advancements coming, but a lot of issues to understanding what difference it would make for them. And so a lot of telecoms companies nowadays have been disrupted by the likes of Skype, for example. So Skype, so one of the most known examples, owned by Microsoft. WhatsApp is a similar kind of example. You have WhatsApp, Telegram, all the kind of line nowadays. And the funny thing is, what I always see is that with a lot of those new innovations, it just happened overnight. At least from the outside, it happened overnight. And for a lot of those large organizations, they're just like non-existent. So what they now say, like the top 4 this year already in the world of telecoms company is Google, is Microsoft, is Apple, and it's Facebook. And there might be in the future room for América Móvil or for T-Mobile, but might not be. Because those are already the 4 biggest telecom parties in the world. That's amazing to realize that like 20 years ago, it was totally, or like even 3-4 years ago, were totally different parties. Anyway, what you see is a lot of disruption happening nowadays in a lot of markets. And a lot of organizations like Encyclopedia Britannica, they have not been able to find the new money anymore, to find the new things. So if you would now to look for, so where do probably the new Facebooks or Google come from, it likely will be from trends like Internet of Things. It's like thermostats in your house, which a Nest, for example. It's called Internet of Things, connecting not only people like on Facebook, but also connecting your refrigerator or your microwave and other elements, your thermostat in life. So also one of the other big models in financial world is just big data. That they just, a lot of organizations think about that, to making financial products for free and then just making money on big data like Facebook and the similar of those companies do. And they work with all kind of, especially in the financial sector, you see a lot of API movements coming up. But again, so probably we also know in our leisure time, whether it's Uber or Airbnb. The Airbnb nowadays, the largest hotel chain in the world. Like 4 or 5 years ago, it was still Hilton, the good old days. And now a lot of, in the hotel chain world, people have to realize, and the Hiltons of them have realized that they're not the biggest anymore. There are other parties that now rule the scene and make money. So what does it do to us? So we see this change happening, and we are all part of an organization or owning an organization. And so the question is, like, how can we change and how can we adapt to that? Because again, so what we see is that the needs of people are changing throughout the world. And of course, internet has helped out a lot with our needs. It says Maslow's hierarchy of internet needs. And at the top end is productivity, and the pinnacle of if you have solved all these earlier basic needs nowadays in life. So you see new roles coming up, new roles, organizations, and new futures of people coming up. And again, this makes a lot of difference as well for the financial sector. On the other hand, we see that the needs of people are more or less the same. On the one hand, you see them changing. On the other hand, you see them keeping the same. The people are still the same, with the same type of behaviors. So what we see when we do a lot of research from our companies on that, and especially Chief Human Officer, which name I'm now talking about. So we see a lot of emergence happening. And emergence means that it is something different than deliberate. Something like I plan to do. Emergence is something that just happens during the day. And the cool new organizations, they use a bit more emergent strategies. They see what happens during the day. And they use all kind of innovation techniques You might know some of those. Scrum comes from the IT world. Agile or lean startup, see what you see now a lot in the west coast of the US. And those are all new products. Technically, it's just like how to run an organization in a different way. How to do that. And again, you see this, MFM is a great example of a successful startup in the world. In a lot of sectors like telecom or the fintech, things have been totally disrupted in the last 2 to 3 years. And you see a lot of entries, exits. It's a very unstable environment. Very unclear what the future will bring. At least I always describe it or compare it to my washing machine. So this is the intention, what I put in, my socks, and this is always what I get out. I'm not sure how this is in Mexico, but at least in the Netherlands, every now and then I do a check on my socks, and I have like 5 to 10 socks. I just cannot find his brother or sister anymore. So the world is changing. That's more or less what I wanted to say. And again, I can imagine whether you're working in the financial sector or in other sectors, in trading, in the end you want to have this year even easier, better or faster than last year. And in terms of success or in terms of things to do. So where could you look? So that's the question. So one of them, of course, is about trends. I've described a couple of them, where they come from. And the trends that will shape the future are usually not in the center of an organization. They're usually at the edges, at the fringes of your sector. Imagine your manufacturing sector is really at the end, or what a lot of people would say, is this manufacturing or is this food industry whatsoever? So again, so what we see that the newest and the latest trends usually come from, first of all, the technology sector. A lot of them from technology sector, especially on the defense industry. Second, of course, on the world of science. You see a lot of things happening over there. You see relatively a lot of stuff as well in the retail, especially in the fashion, where people have needs nowadays. And there are other elements as well where you see where a lot of trends originate from. One of them is, of course, organized crime, the terrorist environment. You see a lot of trends happening over there. It's really a hotspot for new trends. And the street life, where it's a sexual market. The porn market is known for its innovativeness, but also street life as such. And so there you see that a lot of the new organizations look for. And I would like to get to those new organizations. And again, these are just the more famous examples, because I don't want to bother you too much with the new startups. But for example, so what do these Apples or Googles in a different market like Hasbro or Lego have in common? So one of the things that they are focusing a lot on is their innovation culture. The culture, how to embrace new things and how to constantly keep on innovating and not becoming the next Telefonica or the next kind of other Encyclopedia Britannica who have issues with continuing their business model. So they've been thinking about this for quite some long time, and they have been working on all the different elements what creates an innovation culture. So whether it's on the leadership or on the metrics or the way they treat people, they've tried to focus on them all. To give you some examples, Pixar is an example, a movie company, so one of the things that they focus on a lot is to embrace the creativity. They embrace the creativity with all kinds of different techniques. The same for Volkswagen nowadays, the largest car manufacturer, or one of the largest car manufacturing companies. They have the challenge of like, how can we keep on growing, how can we keep on doing things? And they've been really working a lot on, for example, creation of co-design labs to enhance the innovation culture. Intuit, similar kind of company, wants to become one of the most creative companies, also one of the best known nowadays in the world. They create all kinds of like innovation elements that bring them together. Google, of course, it's a famous company as well. They all have the same kind of things. And what are these kind of things? So what makes it so common? So I'd like to talk about and to take a step back to see what most organizations have issues with. So if you now check out on whether it's The Economist or El País or any kind of like magazine, there's a lot of stuff writing about, so what is the future of work? Will robots take over our work? Like what's happening now, of course, in the drug area, that a lot of drones are taking over the work of drug traffickers. Very innovative what's happening over there. And so there, a lot of people, the technology takes over humankind. And there's a lot of challenges with it, whether it's in facility management or, for example, consultancy. So why would you need a consultant, a human consultant, when you could also have a robot or an app do that for you? That's a challenge. And you see that has impact, these kind of pressures on that the world is changing. It has an impact on future of work and also the future of employees. And so one of the things that we have seen over the last couple of years is that a lot of organizations are trying to cope with the external pressure. Are trying to cope with external pressure of like diminishing margins or like new entrants in the market. And again, what you see, which is pretty logical, when you're in a market which is under pressure, your colleagues and yourself won't be that happy because so the future of your work is not secured anymore, or people around you get fired. And again, I'm not sure whether this happens in your areas as well, but we see constantly over and over again that sectors have these kind of issues. And that they try to focus and they say, okay, we need to get out of this, let's work harder. Instead of let's work smarter, let's work smarter, let's work harder and try to get more and more out of that. So again, if you would check out any conference, there's a lot of that about failing. So how can we cope with that? How can we cope with when the workload is crushing? How can we cope with these kind of things? As you can see, this is what you see, for example, on a typical innovation conference around the world. So how do you communicate failure or success? How does your group rebound from a failed innovation? Because you need to try, you need to fight or compete with the new entrants. And by the way, I could also have taken another picture, but I like this one better, with the guy with the head standing up, with the foot standing up. So again, so what you see is that people have less inclination to help out each other. And there's this famous research for this. It's called the Creativity Index. It was done by George Land in 1968, and he tried to understand like why some people or some companies are more innovative than other ones. And so he started to take two examples. One of them was the art of asking questions, and the second one was the not taking yourself too seriously or to laugh about, to have fun. And so what he found is that when you're a 4 or 5-year-old kid, then you ask a lot of questions. Daddy, how is this being done? Mommy, can I help out with this? So why are things red? Why are things blue? And that kids don't have that much of a list of things that they should not be doing, because for them they're just open and free. So what you see is that kids, when they are being tested, have an extremely high creativity score. So the moment they enter school life more and more, they get more rules, that you should not do that, you should be paying attention. And for some reason, creativity starts to go down. And it's especially getting worse and worse at a certain point. So is there anybody here at the age of 44? 44? Yeah, more? Okay, so you're in a state of terminal seriousness, as they call this. So this is the time where apparently a lot of people don't ask questions anymore. Because they are not, they're scared in one way or the other to ask questions, because it may not make them feel powerful, or like they keep on saying, no, like 15 years ago those things we already tried this like years ago, let's not try it again. So that's the state of terminal seriousness. And at a certain point when you retire, so a couple of more years, and your creativity will go up again. So that's the good news. And so you see a couple of examples of them. This is, for example, at Thomson Reuters. That's a very big market data research company. And you have this phenomenon on the internet called memes and Venn diagrams. And they wanted to be cool and trendy, connected to the new world, but they've forgotten to ask how it should be done. So they create this Venn diagram, and so Venn diagram, so these are the values that they wanted to say, like, we are very close to that, but they should overlap a lot. And so what this more or less says is that this is an actual campaign, what they did, and the whole internet was laughing about that Thomson Reuters, again, one of the larger companies in the world, said they have nothing like trust, partnership, innovation and performance. And so when the internet community told them, like, sorry, you're doing things wrong. No. We are a big company, you are just like a small internet person. So let's not work about that. So again, you see this happening a lot. I guess it says we fit. So companies trying not to ask questions anymore and to say, okay, we can do this. And again, so the basic conclusion out of that is that we take ourselves seriously in a lot of the work that we do. And we take ourselves seriously. There's a lot of things that we can learn from several of those companies that I mentioned, whether it's Google or the new startups or the Legos of this world. And so how to take yourself a bit less seriously. And what can we learn from that? And again, it has to do with if you check out the research, what I already mentioned, imagine that you have this company of 100 employees and 87% of them don't actually want to work at your place. And this is according to Gallup Research, it's an international research company. It said, like, overall, in companies of 100 people, imagine that, 87% of them actually don't care anymore about your company. So imagine you're the leader of this organization and you're trying to, like, okay, let's fight the new entrants, let's go for it. At 87%, well, okay, I'll do this because I have to work, but not like passionate and love and action. And again, you see this on street level, where a lot of trends come from, see a lot of mocking on that in the market. So what are companies doing in heaven's name? Why are we still in these kind of old models? So why can't we adapt to the Googles of this world? And again, so the roadblocks that are in there are kind of like the taboos in organization. And taboos in organization can be all kind of different elements. So it can, for example, be technology. So you see there's it's not that clear, but it's all apples, and there's one Acer computer. So when you're now into innovation world, for example, you're really an exception when you're not using Apple products. Or, for example, in a lot of organizations, Excel or using Excel is a good way to make decisions on whether you should focus on this project or this client or the other one. And again, a lot of people don't like Excel. A lot of people know that Excel is a set of lies fixed together in an agreed upon template. And then we just use these as kind of assumptions. But a lot of people don't care about that. And they see, like, okay, let's work with that, but they don't like it. And again, this is always what's happening. So failure is also an example of that. Of organizations trying to change, but have issues with that. It's interesting to see what we can learn from failure, learn from experimentation, how we can do things like that. So one of the famous examples is Viagra. It was actually a failed trial project from GlaxoSmithKline. But instead of firing the whole team, they realized that it did something else to the people, to men, and that the women, some women were very happy with that. So again, so what you see is that it's nowadays still a taboo in a lot of organizations that you cannot fail, because you must be perfect. You must do the things the way everybody's perceived that it's being done. And again, there's this great philosopher who already mentioned this earlier, like, perfect is boring, human is beautiful. So again, this is what you see in the market. It's now changing. Different example is if you would check out the internet on interior design magazines, for some reason, this is what you would get. These are all images from interior design magazines. And so this is especially for people who read this kind of magazines, this is the way that your house should look like. I know, for example, my sister has a lot of issues with that because she has like a lot of small kids, and of course they make up a lot of trash in the house. But she has this kind of dream of how the life should be, how the house should be. So she's always frustrated, like, oh my God, like all this plastic and all these like toys are everywhere. But so what is missing in this image? People, yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's and that's interesting to see is that in a lot of images of the world, in a lot of thinking, we more or less have erased the human. We have erased humankind because we feel like it's not necessary. This is, for example, IKEA. IKEA, of course, one of the larger interior companies. So this is an image that you will get from them. And technically, it's not even a real image because everything that they do nowadays is done behind the computer. And so all the setups of furniture, it just comes out of the computer. And again, it's interesting to see that a lot of the organizations a lot of the thinking that we have nowadays in society is called design thinking, and design helps you to make things even more beautiful. You can imagine whether it's Apple or IKEA or Muji. Muji is like the Japanese IKEA. So what these organizations do, so they try to make things even more perfect, even more shiny and nicer. But on the other hand, in a lot of organizations you see it's all about incremental change. Incremental change, and that's if you're in a sector like telecoms or financial industry or consultancy, a lot of those sectors, they have the issues that it's not enough anymore to make things a bit more nicer. You really need to rethink your models. Again, this is what you see now also happening in Mexico, do-it-yourself kind of revolution. 3D printing is a known example of that. 3D printing, and you see all these kind of like organizations popping up saying, I don't want to rely anymore on larger manufacturing organizations. I want to do things myself. And it's all called nowadays is the imperfection theory. To make things a bit less perfect, and that's what the future will be. Anyway, getting back to work. So if you would check out now at a regular place, at a regular workplace, you will see something like this. And this is an image, it's not so clear here. I've taken this in the subway somewhere. And what you see happening in a lot of organizations, they don't look, they don't talk, they don't go to each other. Just send them each other an email or use the link system or have kind of like chat functionality because they're so busy on their own work. They have a lot of issues of really connecting to other ones. Sounds this familiar for some of you? Yeah, so you're nodding. So this is like, this is what's happening a lot in organizations where you see a lot of change, a lot of where change is needed, that they're not really into that. So there were these guys at a certain point in the London subway who created some stickers just to make fun of it and start to play around with that. Just to create a set of the people here, everybody not paying attention to each other, using headphones just to get yourself out of the noise, to create elements that makes you smile, only a little bit. But a little bit could be enough. That little bit, just mocking the organization culture. And of course they have taken it somewhat too far every now and then. But what you see is that it got really popular on the London subway. Really popular because people finally said something, I didn't expect that to happen. So for some reason in organizations, surprise is not there anymore. Surprises or emergence, things that you can do like what will we do today? We don't know. And so this is a whole change. Again, what you see with the Googles or the Facebooks of this world. They have this kind of different kind of culture. And culture change is difficult because it takes a lot of time. But I'd like to give you at least my 5 cents for you, how you can embrace and create your own kind of next or coolest innovation culture. So basically, my belief system on this. And it has to do with kids. So these are my kids, or a couple of years ago, because they're already a bit bigger. It's called Bente, and she likes to play with just small animals. And she has this whole kind of stories. And nowadays my son trashes her all the time with using his cars, and then kicking the Elsa's from Frozen off the table, because some of you might know this phenomenon. But what you see with kids, that they create their own stories. Again, remember the long studies where kids are very creative, especially in the younger years, because they just create their own stories. They create their own narratives, and they don't care about, you really have to say, me as a dad as well, like, guys, come to have dinner, or to have to go to the toilet, because otherwise they will keep on playing. They will keep on playing and working together, just having fun. In an organization perspective, we could call this the culture. So this is the culture that you actually want to have. That people really are just so happy to work together and to have fun, to laugh and to share their own stories. That's actually what you want. At least a lot of us would like to. And it's interesting because culture is really something that's special. You cannot find it usually on a balance sheet or your P&L statements, but it's really something that's unique and that we should cherish a lot. There's actually this saying from Peter Drucker that says, like, it's very nice that you have your own strategy or your business plan or whatsoever, what you'd call it, but technically if your culture is not right, nothing will happen with your strategy. So if a culture is not right, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's interesting to see how can we enhance that culture. So one of the things that we started looking for, and I started looking for this like 5 to 6 years ago, is to see like what's really uncommon in what you now see in culture research. And one of the things that we started to look out for, me and my team, was the role of humor. And so the role of humor is that laughing, joking, smiling, everything that leads to innovation or to a change perspective. So that's what we started to look for. And we call it humor-driven or human-driven innovation. And so for me, the definition of humor, it's a group of traits that include the tolerance for novelty. So when you see something new coming, then you see, oh, that's nice, that's interesting. Instead of saying, no. It has been done like 5 years ago, I've seen it, known it, I don't care about that. And ambiguity, so that's not always clear. It's not black or white, it could be 50 shades of grey. You don't know what kind of color it is. And so it becomes a natural stimulus for change. So again, so this has been researched a lot within the medical world. So Patch Adams from, of course, Robin Williams, when he was still alive. So in the medical world, it's a known case that when you use humor, people get less stressed. People get less stressed, and less stress is the best way to become more innovative, or to create better results, or to create your own WhatsApp kind of thing. You see it as well happening a lot within the TV world. Probably a lot of you remember Friends, like the ding. And so you see it in the TV world, you see a lot of humor is being used. Apart from bullets and from sex, the other thing is always humor to keep people paying attention to TV. Again, so we see this as kind of like one group of things. Fun, play, humor, informality. So how can we cherish that? Just like to show a video to make it clear what I'm trying to say.
Stand by. Action.
So this is a nice thing about humor. So clearly this guy was an actor, and the actor started to laugh because he can. And he said, ha 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 ha, and it was a fake laughter. So what you see is very contagious. And that's the interesting part of laughter and or humor is it's free, technically, because it's just your oxygen that you're like, and it's contagious. So everybody ties into that a lot. And so more or less everybody has this kind of like behavior that they appreciate laughter. I always joke around that only Germans say Germans are excluded of that. But technically, everybody has this. It's like 100% of the people in the world, they have some kind of feeling of laughter. And there are also several animals like dolphins and monkeys that have this kind of this behavior of bonding together. So the interesting question is, so would it work, this kind of laughter and fun, would it work for business as well? Maybe for your organization, how can you cope with this kind of culture change? So what we see, when we have done a lot of research on the role of humor in organization. So when you ask people, they would say that 97%, so from every 100 people, only 3 of them say like humor is not relevant to my life. Only 3 of them say. So 97% of the 100 people that you would ask, they would say humor is important to me. And again, humor, fun, play, informality, just quoting it as one thing. And the same applies to organizational. So it's not that, not the same kind of amount, but still like 74%. That's a huge amount. And again, so what we see, we've done a lot of experiments, for example, creating job profiles with humor in there and without humor. And the moment you start adding words like humor and fun, you get twice as many applicants. Twice as many applicants, because people really start to feel like, this is like a human company. This is like a place that I would like to work for. So the effects of using humor. Because from our perspective, it makes total sense to think about humor, because it helps you improve the energy levels of organization, and it helps you also to become more innovative. So to become more the Google of your own business. So first of all, on the individual level. So on the individual level, we see that, again, when you laugh, so you get a reduction of your stress level. Stress is one of the highest elements of companies having issue with their employees, that when they get stressed, they become less creative, they can become easier sick. So getting a reduction of stress is relevant in every kind of business. And the easiest way, the best correlation between to reduce stress is humor. More laughing is direct effect on your stress level, which is really interesting. So it's also because there's less stress, people become more creative. And because people can mock each other a bit more, people have a bit more status quo discussion. So when the leader says this is what it should be like, then the employees are a bit more open to say, are you really sure that that's the case? I'm pretty well aware that the Mexican society or organization culture is maybe a bit that what the boss says, the employee should follow. But a lot of other organizations you see around the world, that's getting a bit more on an equal level. And so the manager, the leader, is the one who has some ideas, and the employees should help them out to creating that. At least that's what you see with the top 10 largest organizations in the world right now. You see that there's a parity between so the shift between leader and employees is really shifting like this. So a bit more equal organizations. Equal organizations. So this is like an individual, humor has a lot of effect. Also on the funny thing on the group level, it also has a lot of effect. Because people start to bond together. Start to do things together. And that's a very important element of any successful organization, that people feel a bit like a family, and feel a bit like an organization that they want to belong to. And that they are working and playing so hard that they just like to be there. So again, so what we see on the research that we've been doing over the last couple of years is that so humor has a lot of effect on productivity, creativity, but especially in the end on the organizational climate. So when you want to create an organizational climate, whether it's a WhatsApp again or a Facebook, so these are actually, humor is a very easy and cost-efficient way to do so. And so for those who are managers out there, so the question you might ask yourself, like, okay, so maybe from science it's true that so we should embrace humor, but what would be my role in that? Well, the good news is, so we have been thinking about it a lot, and what we thought is that really the leader should be the humor guy, the funny guy, and of the funny woman. But technically, so in reality what happens is that it is mostly the employees that create the humor culture. As a leader, as a team manager, you should only embrace it. That it's okay to laugh at your office. It's okay to have fun. And again, you can imagine that so adding a bit of humor here and there is not that easy. So one of the findings that we had in the end was that where there's success, there's always humor. And so where there's success, there's always humor. Where there's no humor, there won't be any success. So it doesn't necessarily say you just have to joke and then success will follow. But what we know, there's a 100% correlation. Successful companies, they have a lot of fun. So there's something happening there. And non-successful companies, there's no laughter, there's no fun at all. So there's a clear divide, so humor plays a role to that. So I would like to give you some pointers how you could do it yourself, or what we are trying to do as well at MFM, trying to embrace to create an even better culture that's already happening there. So one of the things that we first always look for is like, what are the regular interventions that you would have in your organization? And of course, one of them, a famous intervention, is meetings. So meetings, of course, that takes for a lot of managers takes a lot of their time, and inviting a lot of people, and what you see happening in a lot of organizations nowadays. So the moment that the meeting starts, people open up their iPhone or their laptop and start to keep up to date with emailing. It's a very common behavior in a lot of organizations, and it doesn't make any sense, of course, because a meeting could be way shorter when everybody just sticks to the time, like saying things one time or twice, but nothing more. But just having a short intervention, like 15 minutes. Okay, guys, let's get together. So what is our plan for today? What can we do? Anything new happening? So then you don't need your phone. Then everybody can join in. So one of the things that we see when you start to change the meeting structure in your organization, you have direct effect. Because people feel free, like, oh my God, like instead of 1 hour meetings, just 15 minutes. I like 45 minutes more time. That's so much more cool and useful to have. And so we have all kinds of tooling for that. We devise them, and as you can see, these are really low tech. They are not really fancy, and any kid could do this themselves. But what we see is that actually these kind of things work best. It doesn't have to be a very technological, cool thing to do. It can be really that simple. So a lot of organizations are now implementing meeting cards. for organizations, just to, at the start of the meeting, they just have to open up a card saying, switch your seat with another person. And you could say like, why? But you see this happening a lot in meetings, that just people sit at regular places all the time. And that's why a lot of meetings are not effective anymore. So again, all kind of techniques that you could do instead of like strategy, using Lego series play. That's a known method used by the large companies, the innovation culture gurus, whether it's Intuit or IDEO. A lot of them use tools like Lego series play. It's a way to get out of your head, but to start building bricks, like the Lego bricks, building that yourself. Another thing that we see is that dressing up during whether your sales meetings or your offsites, dressing up has a direct effect. I'd like to give you one small example. This is a friend of mine, Herman Worries. DSM is one of the larger chemical companies in the world. And so what they had, like a year ago, 2 years ago, they had this leadership event in which they wanted to embrace new innovation. And at the end, what they realized a year after, and what people found out, two things that they remembered. One was the talk of the CEO, and the second, so like a full 2-day immersion workshop. The second thing that they remembered was that they had their own house band. And that they had their own band, which everybody remembered. So like all the regular intervention, or like, let's get serious, let's do really business together. Everybody had forgotten that. Everybody had forgotten about the effects of that. The only thing that they remembered are these kind of things. So the moment you start to add some humor, people start to realize it and remember that. Especially when you connect like fun with a serious message, the remembering of that message becomes much more better. Anyway, second part is changing the physical environment. And again, so a lot of us are stuck in like regular office places, regular office environments. And has been this research, we do this as well, but recently in the Harvard Business Review, one of the most famous magazines in the world, is that the place where you sit a lot, the organization, it really helps you. If you change that physical environment, it really creates a better performance. It really does create a better performance. So for those organizations, for example, who have been implementing new ways of working, like clean desk policies, that's like the worst part for innovation. That's the worst that you can do. That's one of the things that we do a lot, is pimping your desk challenges. Just for people to get a bit of like personality back to the table. So again, this is what you see at so the new big companies of the world. They have this kind of environment. This is our environment: trees, horses. We have all kind of things. But you see this also with the Skypes, for example. They use the walls just to write on there. There's Facebook as well. And again, we follow a lot of those companies to see what they do. So next to our brand, it's also on the Facebook they use the floors just to do like salsa steps and cha-cha-cha. And it's very small, very tiny, one could say. But again, if you know about the valuation of companies like Facebook, it's very relevant to start to rethink what you can do. So one of the other things that you could do as well is to focus on the place where you get your coffee. And to start to intervene there as management, because people use this effect called the water cooler effect, that people flock together, where people flock together like coffee or water. That's where people start to exchange ideas. That's where people start to do things. So the moment you start to focus on that, it makes it successful. So again, stickers are very useful. So change the wording a bit. Or just like small kind of elements, it's just to make people smile and be surprised every now and then. So we add a lot of slides to offices, and a slide to the office is just fun, it's awesome. And again, so what you see when you're having these slides in organizations, people for some reason start to like it better. It's the same with plants or pets at the office. When you add pets to the office, people become more creative and more effective. And it's really strange. Same with coloring. Okay, the last part. And that's about the change, the organizational change that you would like to achieve. And that's because you leaders, or maybe us leaders, or some of you, they say like, let's make our organization even better. And let's create like the coolest culture. It involves also changing processes and working more together in different kind of ways than it's already done so. So again, what we know from leadership studies that we have been executing is that every great leader more or less says like, humor is important. It's one of the best things that I can add to the organization, apart from having a vision, is just being human and just joking around, making people feel comfortable at the organization. And what you see again with those organizations that are so successful, has become so successful in the last decade, last 10 to 15 years, they do this in the smallest particles. This is just a signature from Google. The thing that you see at the end of your email. And I like it. You can imagine that there are a lot of lawyers working for Google. A lot of, and I've just taken several examples for Google because we work so much with them. So what you see is that even on the smallest level, they have started to rethink. So how should people think about the message that we do? For example, we have in our contracts, HR contracts that we give to our employees, the first line is, "Oh my God, it's so cool that you're part of our family." And then next comes the like, herewith, person John Doe is blah, blah, blah. But the first thing that we really want to bring across, like Google does here as well, like, "Oh my God, it's so cool when you see what we do." So there are a lot of other things that you could do, whether it's changing the organizational titles, as a corporate disorganizer. So I was at ABN AMRO Bank, was called the Chief Inspiration Officer. Now ABN AMRO was a really big bank, and I liked it that we did. So again, what we see is that changing these kind of elements, so what should people wear to the office, or having a kind of like a pet, whether it's with MFM for this brand, or this used to be our previous pet, and we now have a different one, but it's just having these kind of like mascots in your organization. People were very happy with it. People liked it. To give you one more small example, the things that we do, which works a lot, is funny office awards. There's a big recipe, a huge recipe for creating more success in your organization. So to give you some examples, I had this guy who only worked for me for 2 months. He had really a lot of issues getting in. He really wanted to work for us, but he needed money. And so after 2 months, he got a better job, at least paid more. And so he came to us like, I need to go. And of course, everybody in the team were like, "Oh my God, like why were you leaving after 2 months? We've been really trying to help you." And so we created, for example, the One Day Fly Award for him. And in the beginning, of course, he was a bit like, I'm not sure whether I like this kind of awards. But everybody was laughing and joking around it. Hey, One Day Fly, it's fine. It's fine that you're leaving. So again, we use this in our organization a lot. For example, just to give like a small wink, instead of giving feedback, it's just a bit more fun way, in this case to Jeske, one of my colleagues, to say, okay, you're spending a lot of time on the internet. Which is sometimes is okay. I could have said it to her, but then she would have been saying like, no, it's not true. And herewith she smiled a lot. The same happened to me, and we have a lot of those. For example, I got the Loch Ness Award because I'm traveling so much. And my colleagues at a certain point started to complain like, "Jasper, where are you all the time?" And I said, "Yes, I'm working." Like, yeah, Mexico, working. More fun than working probably. I said, "Yes, that's true, of course." But so these things that help us changing that. And it's all about provocations. Provocations, instead of doing things the regular way, just a bit of sideway look of innovation. And you see large organizations do this. They also at the Olympics in Sochi, even BP started to play around with that. This is what we see at organizations. This is one of our teams. We have kissing booth at organization at the conference. So this is what we recently did for Swift. Swift is the payments infrastructure in the world. And so we created all kinds of stickers. And the CEO didn't like it at first, because like, hug me, I'm a Swiftie. Oh my God, like, I don't want to have these kind of things. But even Steve Jobs took those kind of stickers. They're like, oh my God, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, sorry. Like these are the, I like this. And so we play around with that, because we know that stickers, for example, are a very effective way to change culture, because you really have to do things with that. So it's about changing the organization, and that people start to rethink and reboot so what they know. And by rebooting by what they know, they become this kind of what's in academic terms called non-commissioned work. What I earlier described is when kids are playing with the Lego, with the dolls, and for example my son is playing with the cars next to that, then new stories happen. And that you really have to say to them, please have some lunch or please have some breakfast, for example, instead of just because you're working too hard, you're having too much fun. And again, you see a lot of those effects. Recent Nobel Prize winner, Geim, was that? He created graphene. It's like a one atom thick layer, which is like the new silicon or silicium. And he did this on a Friday night. So he had his regular work days, 9 to 5 every day. And on a Friday night he said, okay, let's do something really cool. Let's start to play around with Lego, play around with other things. And he got his Nobel Prize for that, which is, I would say, is pretty interesting. And again, so maybe also to wrap up, because so it's not only about having fun. So I'm trying to explain this. So what we see when we check out and we work together with several of the largest organizations right now in the world, and they are just like 20 years old max, a lot of them have applied these techniques. And we've been working together, we're working for them, researching them, and what we see every now and then is that there's a lot of business in that. So whether it's on country level, on GDP level, so there's a big correlation between happiness in this case and GDP of a country, but also just on making money. That's making money in an organization. By applying humor, it makes sense. So you see the newest dating apps, for example, the newest, hottest apps with the crazy valuations, they more or less all have words like humor, fun and play, just in their slogans and their missions. It's really interesting to see that the new organizations that really disrupt a lot of the business, they use the words like a fun way to break the ice. You see now a lot of the big brands are using this. Go fun yourself, from Toyota, Walls, ice cream maker, Goodbye Serious. Recently, Taco Bell started to use that as well, to joke around in some kind of way. And again, so what you see with also parties like Taco Bell is that sales goes up. And it's just by becoming more and more human. So, again, we do this research. I would love to share a bit more with that. But maybe just a conclusion, and as a wrap up. So what we see is that a lot of organizations are trying to cope or to beat the competition. Whether these are new entrants or totally new disruptors. So when you start to copy other models and start to learn from the big innovators, it really does make sense. A lot of organization cultures can be changed, but it should not be in the old-fashioned way, it should be in a new kind of way. And to me that is humor. To me that's the role of fun and play, the way that people interact with each other, there's the key. If you get that right, you can create your own kind of moonshots. You can create your own disruptors in the organization. And it might be that humor is now still a bit vague, but again what we see, what I earlier described, it's not, most organizations are becoming more and more efficient, but that's not where the growth is. The efficiency or the effectiveness is at the edges of a business model. And so in case you would like to become like the next Apple whatsoever, at least give it a try. But what we believe, these were the old words, business to business, business to consumer, but it will be much more age to age, human to human or human to humor, and that's a thing that I believe in, and I hope at least you liked it as well.